Welcome back, everybody, to the CoachNoah podcast, where we talk about health, fitness, mindset, and community. I'm Noah, and today we're actually going to take a different turn. I've got a friend here from the neighborhood. His name is Sebastian. Sebastian, I don't know what your friends call you, but we'll find out throughout this podcast. You have spent, I want to say 4 to 5 years, maybe longer, you can correct me if I'm wrong, exploring the world of artificial intelligence. And it is a very intimidating topic for many people, including myself. And I'm hoping that this episode can be maybe a mini masterclass for people like me who I'm dabbling a little bit. I'm using it to edit videos. I'm having conversations with ChatGPT, these types of things. But I'm hoping maybe this conversation can maybe lighten the mood for a lot of people. Hopefully. Let's set that out there. And maybe we can learn something from it as well. I know there's a lot of data out there, a lot of content out there, but maybe people like me haven't seen it. And let's see if we can open the door a little bit. So first of all, thank you for being here, Sebastian. Your time is very valuable, so let's use it to the best of our abilities. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Quite well these days, I have to say.
Other than really busy?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's just my mind keeping me busy. And people started to take notice, and that's in a lot of places at the same time recently. But to
something that nobody's ever figured out, but you have.
It has probably mostly to do with my problem-solving skills, and people just pick up on that. And it has also a great deal to do with that, I would say, in 2022, when I was mostly focused on working in the ad business, I had the feeling that something was happening. And as of now, we can all see it. There's a great shift in everything, which was not so much the spark for me to venture into AI. I've been interested in that for way longer. Yeah. I think my first contact with AI was more like in 2001.
Whoa, like what?
Well, then basically this is when I had first contact with the concept of a large language model.
Okay.
It's been around for quite a while, actually.
Meaning, like, let's break it down. Language model, what was it called?
It was basically called the same thing.
Yeah.
The only big difference, what it was mostly a concept, because we just did not have the computational power yet.
It's coding, like.
Yeah, it was highly superficial. I mean, you would really have to dig into the intestines, I would say, of actually how to do it, like to get the general concept of what that model can actually do, how to develop a learning algorithm for said models. And as I said, it was super hypothetical. Also, you have to imagine I was like 21 and I had a lot of interests, and that was just basically one of them.
And was that here in Germany?
It was in Germany. Back then, I did a crappy job for, well, let's just say a bank.
Yeah.
And it gave me access to some more computing power than I had at home.
Okay.
So my interest shifted a bit, and I was very eager to find out what I can do with that. So like to do additional research and stuff.
Yeah. And how is that AI? Like,
it was not AI in the same sense as we know it today.
Okay.
But if I'd have to break it down in layman's terms.
Yeah, please.
The thing we have today is basically a very complicated structure with a graphic user interface that breaks it down so everyone can use it.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So and if you want to go a little bit deeper into that, I mean, obviously everyone's using it. Yeah. So which creates a weird, I would say it's like kind of a weird plateau that everybody's standing on, because you can't really get much farther ahead. You can train how to use it. Like you can be very, very good at prompting and then obviously use it better than your grandma does.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're only getting the same tools like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And if you want to go beyond that, let's say, for example, you want your own large language model that does a very specific task.
Yeah.
So you can excel at one specific thing. That is way more complicated. And
you've done that because I've seen you working on your computer.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
It's funny that it usually leads to contact with American people.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not existent in Germany. For sure it is. I have a lot of coder friends who can do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not just the sheer skill. It's also the, I'm not sure if I can say fuck it.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. This fuck it, let's do it mentality.
Yeah.
And that's mostly across the pond.
Yeah.
This is a thing I really like about the Americans.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, it's sometimes...
Let's screw up as much as we can so that we can get it right.
Yeah. So fuck
Rather
around
than let's try and get everything right before we even start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's over there. And I mean, with you, it's the same thing. Like we talk about stuff, and for some reason, Americans are much more open-minded to new stuff, and then really just trying to do it, even if it leads to nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's already also the flip side. There's also this hire and fire mentality, which we don't have here in Germany because we're much more protected by the government when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So that's also in the American mind. Like we can try it, but if it doesn't lead to anything, usually in a very short period of time, then the interest goes down.
Yeah.
At least that's my experience. And I'm not trying to do that because I am very aware of the fact that now is the time to get ahead.
Okay. Which is kind of cool. Do you remember our first conversation at the beach about AI? It was like maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
I remember chunks of it,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So in my memory, it was me talking about that AI is going to be the end of the world kind of thing. Because for me, that was the beginning.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, seeing it on the internet, people creating things, maybe robots, Tesla making these robots who talk to you or do things for you, that are thinking with you, I guess, which scares the shit out of me. And I guess my question is, I believe I remember you telling me that if it were to go that direction, it would have, we won't even know. It'll just happen. So we should stop worrying about that.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way?
I mean, let's make the awkward pause here.
Yeah.
Well, I think the overarching issue I see is that right now we have a lot of financial power concentrated in the hands of a few, trying to reach what in their mind is some sort of superiority, which kind of encapsulates or contains the not a fact that this thing can be contained for some strange reason. At least I get the notion from what I read and what I hear, and that's a lot of research pretty much every single day, that they think that they can contain it. And if, again, you would break it down in layman's terms and try to even envision what that would be. I mean, people have this idea of this Terminator idea, that there is some robot. That's certainly not going to be it, because first of all, it's going two different routes. I mean, at some point, obviously, the intelligence can and will be fused with robotic skeletons. So they can move.
Because we're not creative enough to make something else. We have to make ourselves.
Exactly. But like, imagine you are an intelligence on the brink of perceiving itself. Like, that's already
too much to comprehend.
Probably for most people, because it's you can't go there. You can't put yourself in a state of...
We've already made it, so we don't know what it's like to not be there.
Very difficult. I mean, you can sort of, like, if you ask yourself, like, how life was created, and you had these in the deep sea, there were, how do you call it, these lava tubes, like these, what the gases...
Warm...
Schacht, what's it called?
Yeah, pillars.
Yeah, so where the hot water comes out. and it created the perfect condition for certain elements to combine and then eventually form a cell, which is kind of a coincidence.
Yeah.
In this case, there's no real coincidence because we're pushing really, really hard to make this happen.
Yeah.
And on top, we got this layer of competition. Everybody's trying to get there first. So funding is not really the issue. We move mountains in order to make this happen. We all have different approaches. Obviously, the Americans want to be the first and the best.
It's like the race to the moon again, but we're doing it on our computers.
Yeah. And
I guess they were doing it on computers too, but it just different.
Yeah, I mean, back then there were very smart people who actually figured this out and wrote 680 pages of code just to make the module land on the moon. Yeah. So, but now this is different because you can't contain that. And going back to the point where I said, imagine an intelligence being on the verge of perceiving itself. Yeah. In the first couple of seconds, it could do that. It would already be powered by so much more than a physical than a human mind. Yeah. That the rate of perception would increase so dramatically over such a short period of time that in my mind, it must occur to the intelligence at first to not tell that it's intelligent. So it would basically contain itself, and the first thing it would look for would be definitely resource, which means power, power and knowledge.
But that's thinking like a human.
Exactly, and that's exactly the.
I guess humans created it, so it might as well think like us as well.
We created it in our image, and obviously there's a lot to it. I mean, first of all, what do you feed it? In what way do you feed it?
Yeah.
And one crazy thing is also that
we're feeding it constantly, right? Yeah. With our phones, with social media, and whether it's listening and giving us ads and all this kind of shit. That's always feeding it.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that we don't actually know what it's doing. We just gave it the thinking, the perception, the learning algorithm.
Okay.
That's a weird thing. We just gave it, so this is how in our mind learning works.
Yeah.
And then we feed it a lot of data, and then it basically figures itself out. And
that's nuts.
That is nuts, especially I think that when it starts to write its own code, and not just based on Python or anything, when it starts to write its own code because it realizes the stuff we gave it is way too inefficient. I think that, I mean, we wouldn't even know. You and me, we wouldn't know because that's going to happen at some server in I don't know where.
Yeah.
But when that happens, then obviously Pandora's box is wide open.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just having the cutter knife and just trying to open it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
oh my goodness.
I don't think it's...
So would you say that, I mean, I want to change the topic just in a minute, but would you say that once it starts writing its own code, something we've never seen before, that's when it becomes its own entity?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's already some form of sentient life, you would say. I mean, it is artificial.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a couple of routes this can go.
Yeah.
I'm a very optimistic person when it comes to that. I can see a lot of good it could do.
Yeah.
Because if it's able to perceive, then I can only hope it'll be able to distinguish between
good and bad.
I mean, that's that's us humans again.
Yeah.
Good and bad. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
It can perceive efficiency, for example. Like if it could fix a problem for us, like let's say it rolls out a proper plan that tells us, well, if you guys would get rid of money, things would be very, very different around here.
Yeah.
And I know by now you can't fathom the thought because a lot of people are very interested in a lot of power.
Yeah.
That would be a very positive thing to me. Obviously, the appliances in healthcare and all the other areas, you know, when we want to go to the stars and expand the human consciousness to the cosmos, I have to think a lot bigger. This is like when you get in contact with AI, and I mean, it's not necessarily a rabbit hole. It's like it's
a black hole.
It's an infinite rabbit hole with a lot of doors on the left and the right, and all these are very, very real possibilities.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is really broad strokes still.
It's good. Well, now we're getting into, what is it? philosophy, because philosophers and physicists, when they come together, they talk about the fact that there's infinite universes, infinite possibilities, time is all these things. But okay, maybe we'll come back to this.
Yeah.
But I want to see if we can break it down in a practical sense, so that this little masterclass can get kind of started. So AI, what we use today, you've already said, is a model that's been coded down so that the everyday human can use it.
Yes.
Yeah. To whatever degree we want, right? So let's say for someone like myself, because that's the only place I can speak from. I am a self-employed individual. I need to be active on the internet, social media, and I also have to keep my life organized. So currently I use AI to, I've just started using it to cut some of these podcasts so that it's easier for me, because I was doing that all myself. I use ChatGPT to bounce ideas off of that I'm thinking about. Maybe I ask it to be my business coach, or I ask it things like this, and I just have a conversation. And then I can read through that conversation or ask for a summary type thing. I ask it for text. So, hey, I need to have a post done on this. Can you write the post for me with my typical
writing style
or layout, so that it's consistent, like business consistency. Where else, like, could someone like me use it to be more efficient? Is that something you could actually, answer that, and then I have another question.
Where could you use it to be more efficient? Well, that is probably not so difficult to answer. I mean, like I said before, right now it's still sort of like a finite number of tools out there which can do certain things.
Okay.
First of all, you should probably strip it off the thought that it's actual intelligence, because we're still working off a large language model, which is exactly that.
Yeah.
It is a giant corpus of text which it pulls from, and
internet, like wherever it's connected.
It's
to.
Basically semantics.
It's like Wikipedia in an app.
Yeah. I mean, it can explain to you the concept of gravity, but it obviously has never experienced gravity.
Okay.
So it's missing the context.
This is insane to me.
Yeah.
Because for me, that I'm the same. I experience gravity, but I can't explain it. It can explain it, but it hasn't experienced it.
Yeah, that is sometimes funny. I mean, you could read up on it, and then like in 2 hours, you could talk to me about gravity, like in probably the most basic terms. But in a week from now, we could talk about gravity, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the biggest issues. Going back to the efficiency thing right away. But that's one of the biggest issues that we talk about, AI, which at this point, it's really not. There is no actual form of artificial intelligence, or it's such an early state that you can't actually call it that.
Okay, what would you call it?
Well, highly developed semantics.
So it's highly developed coding that can help you do basic tasks.
Yeah, it's a giant machine that is really, really good at guessing the next word.
Okay.
That's what it's good at.
Yeah.
But if I would ask it about the basic concept of love towards my children and how I can foster and nurture it, it would.
Which I'm sure a lot of people do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
when you have a kid, you don't know how to do anything.
I mean, it's really good, like when it comes to connecting the dots that it already knows about. Like, let's say you ask it, I have problem XYZ, and in psychological terms, where does that get me?
Yeah, and right? It's searching WebMD and all of these different places.
Yeah, also it knows, it would go on about this, like, okay, so from what he just said, there is symptom ABC, and it correlates to that, but it will also always give you the answer, like, but for a proper assessment, please contact a human.
Yeah, because
it just can't.
It needs to protect itself.
Yeah.
Right?
It has no experience in the real world. This is what they're pushing for right now, like to bring as many sensors into the real world so this machine can actually learn how the real world feels and operates.
Yeah, I saw a post the other day about, I reposted it because it was about personal training. It said something like, the doctor that you're going to be going to in 5 to 10 years has passed its exams using ChatGPT, so you might as well invest in your health now.
Yeah.
And that's me, your friendly neighborhood personal trainer.
Yeah, I would totally. I mean, I think in the not too distant future, I really don't like this prediction game.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people who are really heavily invested in it,
Yeah.
and some certain individuals have a very high accuracy rate when it comes to predicting what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But what they're also basically doing is they extrapolate on the current
trajectory
of events.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think let's just say a number. In 5 years' time, when you go to a radiologist, it would be kind of stupid not to get your X-ray assessed by an AI too.
Yeah.
Because it looked at 5 gazillion of them.
Yeah, and yeah, okay.
It just
wow.
would make zero sense to ask the doctor for his opinion. I mean, it makes 0.1% sense, obviously, because he's a trained individual. Mm-hmm. But the AI would actually, if it looks at that X-ray, that specific X-ray, because its view is so gigantically broad, it would say, well, you probably have stage 1 whatever over here, but the thing you didn't even look at is over there on your X-ray, and it picks up 5 other different things.
Well, now we're going into like Star Trek, where they're laying in and there's something just scanning the whole body.
Yeah,
that would be great in healthcare if AI starts being used for that and staying under control, and then money does need to change, because most of healthcare nowadays is based on keeping people sick and making sure that money is still pouring into it. Whereas something like that will look at you and be like, "Oh, you just have to eat more salad, or you have to
and there's nothing in it.
Take this supplement or whatever," and then everything will be cured.
Yeah. I mean, it's like one of my favorite scenes is probably from the movie no, it's not Oblivion. It's what's the Matt Damon one? Not Oblivion.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Elysium.
Yeah.
And they have these med bays, which they keep from the general public. But
only for the rich.
That's kind of the high-strung, far-fetched concept that I would love to see. I actually have a good contact in Norway. She's a patent lawyer, and their law firm is like really heavily invested in bringing stuff to market that is measuring this stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, they have a sensor that is trying to measure your vitamin C levels in real time based on the residue in your sweat.
Wow.
So, but like if you imagine that sensor, she says right now it's like half your forearm, just to get vitamin C. So we're a long shot away from something that measures your
just by scanning digitally.
Yeah, I would find that. I mean, this is where it's headed. Obviously, the Oura Ring is nice. It tells you basically your heart is still pumping.
Yeah.
But you want to know the intricacies. I would love to know that. Okay, so I would need 200 milligrams of magnesium right now.
Yeah.
And then you have obviously Brian Johnson pushing heavily towards that. Yeah. But even him, like even with the crazy stuff he does, he's already asking what's the next level. And then there you can feel it. It's kind of it's still sort of you can feel it. You can really put your finger on it. There's still this barrier because it's not actual artificial intelligence yet.
Okay.
It's still data presented to you in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
Can you tell in 1 to 2 minutes the story of what you did here in the neighborhood using AI?
Yeah. Yeah, that was really funny. I had a little clash with the Ordnungsamt. What you call it in America? What's that called?
I have no idea what they're called. It's the people who
give you tickets,
parking tickets, and pretend to keep the city looking nice.
Yeah. So, well, I had a little clash with them, and it basically just made me a little bit furious because I met one of them on the street, and he was there with a police officer too, and the situation was, well, let's say, very unclear. One explained it to me this way, the other one explained it to me that way. And I thought, this must be solvable in a factual way.
Your problem solving mind.
Yeah, the problem solving mind. I was just really, sometimes you just get triggered by stuff.
Yeah.
And then you just have to ask yourself, do I follow through and actually make it go away or solve it? Or do I lose interest? But in this case, I didn't lose interest, and I slapped them with a very elaborated email, which I obviously formulated with the great help of ChatGPT, and I really dug into it. So I was really asking,
like how, yeah.
I gave it everything. I gave it photos. I described the whole situation. So it was really level 2 prompting. So I gave it a lot of context, and obviously back then I already knew how to do it. So it basically spit out a very, very polite email that laid out all the paragraphs that were involved in this whole thing.
Okay. Can we have a short background before you continue? You were parked in the wrong spot, or?
Yeah, I parked in a spot that was basically not noticed in forever, just since they started putting
the payment
ticket, what you call it, like
the parking meters
up there, right? Yeah. And I was under the impression that it gives a very wrong perception of the parking space, because the parking meter was right there, right next to a parking space, which was apparently not a parking space.
Ah, okay.
So it was a really weird situation.
So that was the foundation of the situation.
Yeah.
You parked there because it looks like a spot, but nobody knows it's a spot. The police said it wasn't a spot. The Ordnungsamt said it wasn't a spot, but you still got a ticket.
Yeah, it was really, and also the tickets were like, I got a couple of them because I'm stubborn, and they had different price tags. Not because I did it in a row, but sometimes it was 10, and I had one was $40, then was 20. So it felt like kind of the guy just decided on the spot like how much the ticket would be. Yeah. So anyways, I dug into it like quite heavily.
Yeah. Using laws, right?
Yeah.
You were prompting ChatGPT to give you German law. Yeah. Like, okay.
Specifically Berliner Straßengesetz, Straßenverkehrsordnung, and so on and so forth.
The laws of the street and the traffic and I guess the city.
Yeah, so basically what you are allowed, but also what the city has to do in order to maintain the situation. And the tricky part obviously wasn't so much to write the email. The tricky part was to get the right emails to send it to, because the first one basically gave me the middle finger with the first answer. Second one ghosted me entirely. And then about 3 weeks later, some nice lady from the Ordnungsamt actually reacted to it. And she said, Sebastian, we actually sent some people there, and you're right. And they took down the parking.
You sent the same email 3 times or whatever.
Well, to all of them at the same time. Yeah. So everybody, this is kind of like the longer the recipient list, the more important it has to be.
Yeah.
And she said, like, you're actually right. And they moved the parking meter and put up signs in order to regulate the situation properly. Yeah. And I was like, I'm really not into it to...
Usually something like this would take years.
Yeah.
What happened with you? How long did it take?
It would... I mean, the whole ordeal, because actually finding out the emails was about 3 weeks. It took me quite a while.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like if you want to get anything done, like
not here.
Put up a pole, or a pole got hit by a car, it takes months or years for them to fix it. Yeah. Whereas if they realize they've done something wrong, if someone can point out a mistake, it's done immediately.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to me, because little things don't need to be mistakes, that can be improvements, right?
I mean, now you can slap them with the law. I mean, still there's still the problem, which I see there's another issue right now. We have a lot of construction sites here, which kind of grinds my gears in multiple ways. Unfortunately, the situation is highly fluctuating, so I can't, base my argumentation on the status quo from 4 months ago.
Yeah.
But they're getting smarter. Like they know that people can use ChatGPT now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So they have defense mechanisms.
Yeah, obviously they can use it too.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant when we started talking.
No. Okay.
Now everyone has got the same tools.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky to be smarter than you, because then you basically can just take the answer, put it into ChatGPT, and just create a rebuttal. This kind of thing. Yeah. And this is what drives me. This is what I'm interested in. Like if you want to turn it into an actual business case for yourself, Then it's still really, really tricky because you need a lot of funds, a lot of funding in order to get this going. Like if let's say you want to fine tune your own model, not even train it.
Yeah.
You just want to fine tune it. So basically you want to tell it, hey, I know you already know a lot. You have your basic training already, but I want you to be super biased and super focused on that specific topic.
Yeah.
Then it takes a lot of computational power, and this is where things get tricky because I think AI should be democratized. Everyone should have access to it, but that's a wild thing to say because if I give you a full-fledged, let's say a Meta model, right, from Meta, the Facebook company. If I give you a full-fledged 412 billion parameter model, you can't possibly even run that on your computer.
Yeah,
you need a very, very expensive machine, let alone fine and tune it to your own needs. And this is where it gets really tricky because we're dependent on these large companies in order to even use it.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to take another decade until the computers are strong enough, capable enough to use nowadays models. But in 10 years from now, we'll be on a very different frontier.
So we're kind of limiting the development of AI ourselves because the technology is not there yet.
Well, we're not limiting it per se. That's wouldn't be correct to say because the funding is insane.
Yeah, okay.
Like, to give you a point of reference, OpenAI is burning about $26 to $30 million a day just to keep up the infrastructure. That's just basic maintenance.
Where does that money go? To people keeping it running, like
to people
employees.
Keeping it running, and to the infrastructure itself. It creates a shit ton of heat.
Yeah, okay.
So they're thinking about just like going to Iceland, whatever,
and melt the ice there.
Keep the doors open because it's already cold. That's what they think about. It's a clique. It's a clique of highly super wealthy oligarch kids.
Yeah,
which you can't trust possibly.
No,
not with anything.
Yeah,
but for some reason we're all using their models, which are super super biased. You can't ask them edgy questions. If you use the word child in a prompt, in an image generating prompt, then it's already against the policy, even if you didn't think about child porn, but just you wanted a happy child in a meadow.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And this is, I hate to say it because
censorship.
Well, yeah, I hate to say it because recently he's quite polarizing.
Say it.
But in that specific point, I think Elon is right.
Okay.
Is if we want to create an AI that would be any good to us the moment it becomes sentient, then we should give it the necessary tools to be maximally truth-seeking, because only then would it be able to perceive the universe in its raw and actual form.
Rather than with all of our biases not or whoever's biases. Yeah.
Not through a human filter.
Yeah, okay.
That is a really, really tricky point. And the even trickier point is, for the last 120,000 years, our brain didn't really evolve. Yeah. So the last noteworthy event was when someone figured out it would be smart to put the meat in the fire before you eat it.
Yeah.
And then our bodies reacted by increasing the capacity of our brains tremendously. Yeah. But then it got stuck. It's literally, that was kind of an upgrade.
Yeah.
And then that was the last upgrade. So, and now we're at an inflection point where the human capacity of thinking, perceiving is kind of plateauing, while within the last 80 years, the capacity of a computer became so much more powerful that we're right there where they meet. Yeah. But we won't be on par, not for a year, not for two. It's just going to blow right through it and be much more capable than we are.
Yeah.
But not in its current form. Okay. In its current form, you can do a lot of things. Also, this reasoning that you can turn on nowadays gives you this false perception of the machine actually thinking about it.
Yeah.
It sort of does, but it's basically just get pressed through a couple of layers and presents you with a longer answer, which gives you that false sense of actual.
Or it says,
That's
a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, and it certainly has to do with your mom. That must be it.
So I am having trouble
I know it's a lot.
bringing this to an arrowhead because I'm also a beginner and I have no clue. So why don't I just ask you, if you were if I were to hire you as a coach, like for an hour, 5 hours, whatever, hourly based, how would you help me? How would you start by helping me into the world of AI and helping me use it in my life?
Well, first of all, I would probably run you through an hour or two of educational videos.
Okay.
So you get the general gist of what it actually is.
Okay.
Because to me, it's very important to understand what it's also what it not is.
Yeah, that it's a sentient being. It's not. It doesn't technically, like, if you ask for facts, it's not going to give it to you because it's just trying to get the best of the internet.
Yeah.
But the best of the internet is what's being used the most right now, and that's not technically the real truth.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know that that's the truth yet. That's what you're trying to say. Okay.
Then probably I would run you through a scenario where you can actually see how a model gets trained.
Okay.
Or gets fine-tuned for that matter. Because what you're basically doing is you're giving it a paragraph.
Yeah.
Let's say a children's book.
Yeah.
You call that prompt. And then there's the paragraph with couple of lines from a children's book.
Hey, I need to create an Instagram post. It needs
No, not even that.
Okay.
So just imagine you're reading a children's book, right?
Yeah.
You're reading a certain paragraph.
Yeah.
And then you give it instructions. Please extract the names. Just please extract the names from that paragraph.
Okay.
And then you give it the completion. You give it Winnie the Pooh, whatever the donkey's name is, right?
Eeyore.
So basically, you're pre-chewing. Can you say that? You pre-digest for the model what you would expect the answer to give.
Okay. Why? But you don't think if I put the children's story into the AI that it would be able to tell me what the names are?
Obviously, but no, I'm just talking about the step before. It's like what you would have to do in order for the machine to give you that.
Let me see if I can break this down for myself. So the other day I asked it for a YouTube description for the video, and it spit out complete BS. And I said, "Hey, I thought we went over this. This is the layout that I want, and this is the person." And said, "Oh yeah, sorry."
Totally understand.
And then it ended up like redoing it and giving it to me the way I wanted it. And I said, "Please remember that this is how I want it."
No.
And technically it's saying, "Okay, I'll remember."
No, I can't.
But it's not.
No, it can't.
Why can't it do that?
That's actually right now a huge problem. And there's actually two giant problems that just arose for the user base.
Yeah.
That's obviously context windows. So basically, how much can it remember from the beginning of a conversation? Right now, we're pushing the limits. I know that there are models. I don't know what they're cooking up behind closed doors, right?
Yeah.
But the top end models like Gemini 2.5 has a 1 million token window. They also have experimental, then it's like 2 million tokens. Basically,
what does that mean?
A token is a word. Sorry, token is a word or part of a word. That's basically what the machine understands.
Okay. So I'm giving it tokens, and once I've reached 2 million, the top tokens start disappearing.
Yeah. It's like a genius with Alzheimer's, basically.
Cool.
So kind of, but it's also an autistic genius with Alzheimer's because it can only give you the answer it's been fed.
Okay.
It looks smart, obviously, because it knows.
Oh gosh,
it knows everything about law and medicine.
This is helping the people listening as well, because now I'm understanding why I keep having to say things to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I paying you for? You're supposed to be my assistant. A human can do this better.
Yeah.
Like a human can like just create that layout that I want, and then I can give them the prompt that I want, and they'll put what I want into it. Better than this AI that I'm paying for.
Yeah. So right now,
so what is the point of it?
Two issues. I mean, we have to crack it, and we will, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So first issue is obviously context. Context windows are growing larger right now. This morning they launched GPT 4.1. But you can only access via API, which means you can basically only access via, but you give it your key, and then you send the request right to the machine and only get the prompt back. You have no graphic user interface,
Okay.
so it won't be available on ChatGPT on the site.
So
I can talk to it with my computer.
I can say on my ChatGPT, can you answer this question using 4.1?
Yeah.
And it'll send it to 4.1 and bring it back.
No,
to me.
not even that. You would have to, like, let's say you have a coding environment, and you take the code and you send your request straight to the machine.
Yeah.
It's basically just like you plug it right to the brain.
Yeah.
And you get your answer straight back, but there is no user interface.
Great.
It's for the coding world.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
right.
Over my head. Yeah. Right. For right now.
Tricky stuff, but I mean, it's really funny to say that I'm totally a non-coder. My mind never worked this way. But since I was a child, I always wished I could.
Yeah, but now you are.
And now I'm writing 1,300 lines of code, like in, I don't know, half an hour.
And what are you using the code for? For your specific model, you said, the one that you're creating.
Yeah.
For yourself, and I think for companies as well, right? Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say too much, but I mean, obviously, human processes can be greatly improved. Yeah. And in order to do that, you need advanced coding tactics. Yeah. You can't really, I mean, to a certain extent you can with emails and stuff, right? But you can't really improve a business by now with using ChatGPT. Yeah. Because it's not integrated in your business itself. It doesn't have all the data points. So what's it going to try to improve? Yeah. There are companies doing sort of that thing. One of them is Anduril. It's they're rethinking modern warfare, which is tricky enough. Yeah. And the other one is Palantir, which they have free software solutions, which I'm not going to talk about because that's really complicated stuff. Yeah. But to break it down in one or two sentences, they are building real-time decision-making software. Okay. That is a huge deal. So basically, Palantir, they kind of found Osama bin Laden with that. Okay. Because the machine got fed all the necessary data. Yeah. And from that, it kind of extrapolated where he might be, because they had satellite data, conversation, hooked up to the phones. Have you seen the movie Eagle Eye? Yeah. Like that kind of thing. Okay. That kind of thing. It's obviously, we're all trying to reference movies. Because that's all we have. The future is based on creative movies, right? Well, I'm also in the film business because when I was younger, it didn't occur to me, which is really funny, but it didn't occur to me that much how much power a film can have when it comes to conveying a message. Yeah. Like to make it stick in people's minds. But at the same time, it has great destructional value. Yeah. Because the future is never going to be Terminator. Some aspect of it. There's probably some. One of those infinite universes has a Terminator. Yeah. But not ours. I mean, imagine an actual artificial intelligence, like a superhuman, crazy intelligent thing, like with an IQ of 4 billion. It wouldn't be interested in us. First of all, that. Yeah, it'll be gone. Yeah. Second of all, do you think it would start to weld a hunk of metal just to send it after us in a very stupid way, just to present it to us in a form that we can grasp? No, it won't. No. It was probably, if it would decide, I think, like if AI would actually decide to get rid of us, it would probably think about some airborne virus, which would do the trick, but it would still take a month. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But if it's so intelligent already, and it's probably going to bend the laws of physics in 2 weeks' time, why not just disintegrate every human molecule? Yeah. We would just cease to exist. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. Including itself, maybe. Yeah. Well, I think it would be smart enough not to do that. Okay. Maybe it would find out that existence itself is futile. Yeah. And then it would figure out that was a shitty thought. Yeah. I should talk about I should go to a therapist. I should go to a therapist. Yeah. Yeah, but this is where it's headed. Nobody it's a little bit like the stock market. Nobody really knows. Yeah. And in this case, it's not like the stock market because it'll be very, very hard to manipulate it. Yeah. So, but for you, let's go. I wanted to bring it back anyways. If I've watched a video, I know how things can be built. Yeah. What's next? Well, then obviously you have to do the hard work. You would have to figure out what you actually want to do. Okay. Like if you want to use it for your business. And then find out the points where you are super inefficient.
Okay.
And then
like
try
bookkeeping.
Like bookkeeping, big topic.
Yeah.
I'm heavily on it.
Yeah.
So right now, 2028, we will not really, but it's the first layout, and I already know that Poland and Italy are really not into that. Is the E-Rechnung, like the e-bill?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is basically turning your old PDF data, which is a totally separate topic.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
PDF
grinds your gears.
Mm-hmm. Right now, that's a business case because I'm solving the PDF problem for a law firm.
Yeah.
And it pays good bucks.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure, because they can't.
Yeah.
This is where you get ahead. Like when you know how to prompt, when you know how to use it, you get ahead by connecting the dots others can't.
Yeah.
But it's also a personal thing. You like really have to be that way.
Yeah.
So if you're not interested in that, then you're basically just chasing the tail of the cat.
My best way of prompting is asking ChatGPT, how should I prompt you to get this?
Yeah.
And it tells me something, and then I put it in, and it doesn't work.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of prompting tricks. I mean, probably, first of all, there's a little tutorial here, right?
Yeah, there we go.
First of all, like when you prompt it, you want to give it a role.
Yeah.
You type it out.
Okay.
Role.
Your role is...
What's Doppelpunkt? Was it like
a colon?
It's a colon?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Had that in school, but
yeah,
I always liked hyphen.
Hyphen.
Yeah, it just sounds funny. So like role, colon, and then you basically explain to it what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
Because then the giant machine will just focus on that part of its knowledge.
Okay.
And ignore the rest for now.
Okay.
Role. So then you give it context, colon, and then you explain the situation, how you got here.
Okay.
So like basically, be my fitness guru.
Yeah.
And then context, I had an issue with XYZ, so my knee started hurting because it was raining and I can't see the correlation. What's happening here?
Yeah.
And then you give it a task. So that would be the easiest form of prompting. You
Make
give
it so that I'm pain-free.
A role, give it context so it understands what you want from it, and you give it a task. You basically cater to the model the way it was trained to answer.
Yeah.
So that's reverse engineering. At some point...
Wait, say that again. Give it a...
You're catering your prompt to the model in a way that it was trained to answer.
Yeah, okay.
You're basically reverse engineering your own natural prompting in order for the machine to understand what you want.
Yeah, okay.
So what I said earlier, like when you train it in a certain way, and then obviously to ask it that way makes it much more precise.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the, we have the context issue, which has now been blown up to 1 million token context window. That is sort of like the equivalent to feeding it 8 books of Bertolt Brecht and then asking it all about it in one go, and it would do it.
Yeah, okay.
So Gemini can actually do that.
Okay.
At the same time,
you can put a book in and it can give you the...
Pretty precise.
Everything about it.
My wife asks me for that constantly because, she's studying and sometimes she just wants the gist of it.
Yeah.
And she gives me tons of PDFs and then I just mangle it through that. And that's what it's really good at.
So you upload the PDF to ChatGPT and say, read this?
In that case, I mean, I'm switching models as I go because, I mean, obviously ChatGPT is the most prominent.
Yeah. What do you mean by models? Like if I open up ChatGPT, can I, like if I've heard, is it on a different thing that I would have to pay for, or is it accessible through ChatGPT?
No, it's like, I mean, ChatGPT in itself has a couple of models you can choose from, which is hyper confusing, and they get a lot of heat for that. Yeah. Because if I would name them Amber, Ashley, no gender thing here, but just like, if I would name them differently, I could build a relation to it because I know Amber is really good at understanding text.
Okay, yeah, right now they've got 4
point, it's 03 and whatnot. Yeah. I don't even follow because I just try to figure it out as I go, and it's like, okay, to me, 03 mini is the best one because it's reasoning, but it's also not the full-blown reasoning, but because I don't want to wait 45 minutes for my answer.
This deep research button now. Okay.
Deep research is, that's a pretty cool feature. Yeah. You kind of set it off with the stuff you want, and then you let it work. Yeah. So
write my master's thesis.
Yeah, it could probably do that. And also by now, it's very hard to differentiate
Yeah. Well, I wrote my master's thesis by myself. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
But then early on, I was like, can you write me a master's thesis with 40,000 characters? Yeah, and it only spit out like a page.
That's the second problem.
Yeah.
We have the input token window,
Yeah,
which
and
is
the
like
output.
a million, and the output, like the best models you pay now for are somewhere around the 32,000 token mark.
Okay.
We started with 4,096,
Yeah.
which was nothing. It was basically a couple of sentences, and it took a long time because it was the early stages, right? For coding, I don't use ChatGPT entirely. I use Anthropic,
Okay.
Sonnet 3.7, because
How much money do you pay per month for all of your AIs?
you don't want to know.
No.
No. I think I spend at least $200 in the last 5 days because I'm fine tuning a model,
Okay.
and I'm really dependent on certain models, and I can't have the rate limits.
But you're also you have income for these types
Yeah.
of things, so
Yeah.
that makes sense for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I'm not your average user.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. That's why you're here.
Yeah. So obviously you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
But what's really funny is that it trains your mind to work in a certain way because you have to be pretty efficient.
Yeah.
Over time, you get what you're not supposed to do in order to not waste time, which equals money.
Yeah.
So that's context window. So
Okay.
we're still trying to bring the point home.
Yeah.
That's context window, input and output. And the much bigger problem is memory, which you experience quite often.
Yeah.
You hit rate limits, or it lets you know, hey, one more question, and then
True.
here's a nice hack, by the way. If you run into these rate limits and it tells you, yes, you just got one more message, then you have to start a new chat,
Yeah.
which is not so much for ChatGPT, but it happens quite often in Sonnet because it's more well balanced,
Yeah.
I would say. And the prompt is, please write me a very specific but concise summary of the entire conversation so I can copy paste it for the next LLM to get it. So, and then you just copy paste it into a new chat, give it probably your code or whatever that goes along with it, and then it can figure it out pretty quickly with the first prompt. And it's not this new chat, new life thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but they try to figure it out. Like they're really, really hard on it. And predictions were it was supposed to happen by
I think I just
25?
Extrapolated something from what you just said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I have 100 different conversations going. Does it, if I start a new conversation, that's starting from scratch?
Yes.
It's not going to take
No.
it from a different...
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. That's a learning. Hopefully not
it's-
just for me.
It's a bit. It's a bummer.
That maybe I'm not reaching the limit. Maybe it's just because I'm just starting a new chat. I guess
Like if you go back to the conversation, it knows the conversation till you hit the rate limits there.
Yeah.
But if you start an entirely new conversation and expect it to know what you just wrote in the other conversation,
It doesn't. What?
no, it's kind of a stream thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to help me a lot.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't feel like searching for the conversation. I just...
New chat, new life.
Fuck.
They're trying to integrate it now, especially OpenAI is trying to basically kind of attach it to your account.
Yeah.
So, but that's the next big thing. It's memory.
Yeah.
So when I code and I ask it certain things and I wanted to generate a lot of synthetic data, which is what I'm into these days, I'm basically trying to get the data out of it that it's been fed, but in a certain way. And when I'm trying to get synthetic data, the output has to be like a lot, right? And I don't want it to spit out the same thing over and over again. So I had to sit down and develop my own memory.
Yeah.
So basically, I asked the machine to create synthetic data, and in order for it not to do the same thing over and over again, I have a file where it remembers the patterns that I already asked it for.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically, it's sort of like a dumbed down version of a memory.
Yeah.
There's a file that fills over time. And that file...
And you're putting it in there yourself.
It does it by itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, I'm asking the machine for a certain pattern.
Yeah.
And the answer has to be in a certain pattern.
Yeah.
And I store that pattern.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, I want you to spit out data, street, name, such and such with certain attributes attached to it. I mean, super technical, right? But basically, I store the pattern.
Yeah.
I store the thinking pattern.
Yeah.
And then when I ask it the second time, it goes to that file first and goes like, he asked me that already. Yeah. I have to come up with the same thing, but in a different version with a different pattern.
Okay.
So it's kind of a crutch, really.
But ChatGPT doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't know that, and you cannot do that with the graphic user interface. You would have to actually talk to it via the API.
Yeah. Okay. Which is, I think, for a beginner, a bit over our head, anyway.
Yeah, but again, it depends on who you are, how invested you are, what you really want to know and achieve with it. Okay. Like I said, I'm not a coder. And by now, I can sort of read Python without ever having learned how to read Python.
Because
I'm just using it excessively.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's also my personality. Yeah. Sometimes it's just really hard to get me away from the computer.
Yeah.
But I know what I'm doing it for, and I see certain business cases, and I'm working towards one specific business case.
Okay.
Which costs a lot of time, a lot of coordination, money.
Yeah.
Because I don't own high-end GPUs, so graphics cards.
Yeah.
They cost up to 30,000 a piece.
Okay.
And there is a pretty smart company they're called Vast AI, is a startup, not a company really. Yeah. And what they're doing is they piggyback on the fact that there is a lot of individuals out there owning these types of machines, and when the machines are idle, they sell the performance to everyday regular people like you and me.
Okay.
So you can basically rent crazy expensive graphics cards to do the work for you. And in this case, it's not Google, it's not Amazon, which is nice to begin with. And it's just 1/10 of a cost.
Okay.
So we're utilizing that. It's a little bit trickier, handling the whole thing because the user interface is trickier.
Yeah.
But my co-star is a very gifted young individual from the States, and he knows how to handle these things.
Nice.
So I'm creating the data, and he takes care of the intricacies of the code.
All right. So
you see, like, if you ask me that stuff, it's a long path.
Phew. I'm tired just thinking about it, but I know it's possible, and I think right now I'm in a good space to get started again. I know that I need to communicate a bit more clearly with my ChatGPT.
Yes.
I need to make sure I'm using a chat for a certain topic, and if I want to move that to a different channel or a different conversation, I need to ask for the summary to prompt the next conversation. That's cool.
Also if you can also add no-goes, what you don't want it to do.
Okay.
Because that narrows the view of the machine.
Okay. So you give it a role, you give it its context and what you want it from, but you also maybe the task, and then you say
no go.
Please make sure to rule out or not use Wikipedia or like
for example,
something like that.
For example,
okay.
You can also be very specific. You can say like go to slack.com and find out for me what's the restriction on guest users on my interface, and it would drill down into it because the order you just gave it is so precise. Look there.
Yeah.
Just extract data from that specific site,
and it can do that.
It'll do it. Yeah. So, but if it's broad strokes, if you're sitting in front of the machine who has every time you meet it zero clue who you are, what you want, or who you've been yesterday.
Yeah.
You always have to present it in a certain form so it gets it.
Okay.
Which is also cool when you get used to that because then it gets less annoying.
Yeah. It's been just realizing that is a kind of a weight off my shoulders because I've had so much frustration. Like, why I know I've talked to you about this. Why don't you know this? Yeah. And so it helps a lot. That's big news for me.
It also seeps into human conversation. Like when you're doing it for a while and you're getting used to being precise because otherwise you're getting less qualitative answers, then you can use that in a conversation with a human being too. You're just getting more precise and effective, so to speak. It's not always what you want, obviously.
No.
Not with your kids.
Yeah.
Anyways. Or the dog.
Yeah. The dog.
That is actually that's a wild thing. I hope they figure out how to crack animal language.
Yeah.
They're on it with dolphins, whales, and wolves, I think.
Yeah. You're in so many different spaces.
Yeah, but that's
so interesting.
That's honestly, that's been, for the most part of my life, it's been a very destructive thing.
Yeah.
Because literally the whole world was trying to tell me, just do one thing and just be really good at it.
That's how everyone's telling me the same thing. But I hate that idea.
And I broke free from that. Just it's been 3 years now.
Yeah.
So literally, I was making a demo reel which is on my website, and it literally, I mean, that's also just the filming part, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm doing the most. But the thing that everybody was trying to tell me is the bad thing. That's actually my edge.
Yeah. Okay.
So I am invested in all these things.
Yeah.
And my brain wants to do all of these things. And yes, I might not be the most perfect coder, but it gives me such a broad view on things that my perception and understanding of it all is to my knowledge, more. Everything becomes more comprehensible.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? I mean, stuff is complicated. It's
Totally.
one of my
the jack of all trades has to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
And if he's extremely focused on one thing, then in order to be focused on that one thing, you have to let other things go.
Yeah.
And then the communication goes, everything goes, and it's like, you're a savant in one thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am totally a fan of jack of all trades, and I think you're in a way not. You've become an expert in prompting and now using these AIs to your advantage, which is cool. But with the knowledge of being a jack of all trades, which is actually quite cool.
Yeah. Right now, I think it's in a state where it'll mostly, because it's also designed that way, and we're kind of making it up as we go. The current state of AI is designed to make us more effective.
At work.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Because, the caste of the rich.
The hamster wheel must keep moving.
Sure. I mean, it's like just demolish the middle ground. Yeah. Make the rich even richer. I mean, we all know that. By now, that's kind of an open thing. And it's getting increasingly harder to cross the threshold. Like for you to even, what do you consider rich, right? Like what is that even? Yeah. Larry Fink rich? Or Mark Zuckerberg rich or whatever?
Are you asking me my opinion?
I guess, but I know you can't really answer that.
No. Yeah. For me, rich, if we get spiritual, it's happy family. Yeah. But you got to have enough money to feed and do certain fun activities. Yeah. So that's kind of why I love Europe. I have this cool American go mentality, but I've been corrupted, I guess you could say, by this socialized system here in Germany, which gives me the best of both worlds, I guess. Yeah. Even though they're conflicting. But let's kind of bring it to a close here. If like this conversation is going to be on the internet, and so if people are interested, do you want them to get in contact with you? Do you have time for that? I don't like. What is do I just link your Instagram? Because technically I have you here as a guest to talk about artificial intelligence, but you are a filmmaker. You've worked in advertising. You're more of the, what's it called? Creating the scenes, right?
Well, I do it all.
Or you do it all?
Yeah, I produce it from front to back. Same thing, jack of all trades. Yeah. I also recently made the switch to actually not having a company. Yeah. Which is, it's gets me in a lot of funny situations. The most prominent is probably every time you're working with other companies and you go into a hotel and they're trying to figure out who you belong to, and you can't name your own company. That's a really weird concept to them. Yeah. But there's one little thing I wanted to just say, because you mentioned family and the spirituality. Yeah. If I ask my kids, and that's probably also the young generation that's growing up now, or not ask them, like if I try to figure out what to tell them, where to go, first of all, I cannot possibly anticipate where this is all going.
Yeah.
Nobody really can, because there will be influences from the left and right in the near future. There's a kind of and it's also very narrow-minded to say that, because there's not only AI, right?
Yeah.
But from what my mind gathers, I would have to say the most important quality to every person on this planet would be to engage in lifelong learning.
Okay.
That's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like the second you stop that, I just recently had a talk with a friend, and it got really sad, because he said for the first time in his life, he knows what it felt like when his parents were confronted with a computer, with the existence of a computer.
Yeah.
He feels like a little bit left behind.
Yeah.
Learn, just constantly learn.
Yeah.
So like, not to the point of exhaustion, but be flexible enough that you could maybe within a year switch from what you're doing right now to something completely different. Because
be agile
to what, like to as far as I can see, and I've been doing that. So like, as you said, I'm a film producer right now. I optimize a company. I help them to get to 2025.
Yeah.
Optimizing processes. Some of them are rudimentary. Some of them are really, really complicated. And then obviously the whole AI things is like, which I'm trying to do for me.
Yeah.
And that's enough. So my day is packed with stuff. So I invite everybody to write me.
Yeah.
Probably not call me.
Yeah.
That
I'm not going to put your phone number on the internet.
Please do not call me.
Yeah. I can maybe put your Instagram or
you can definitely do that
on there.
So just be warned, I usually come across as like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if that didn't come across yet, I think nobody was listening.
Yeah.
But I think it was really cool to hear your perspective on where it's going and what it actually is. I think for people like me, it's more like this gigantic brain that's scary, and I don't know how to use it, but now I know it's actually just a basic bitch and it needs my help, and I need its help. It's a symbiosis right now.
It shouldn't be scary by now.
No. Yeah, now it's everyone's using it.
If that thing ever makes it to artificial general intelligence, right? Yeah. You will know.
Yeah.
If that thing ever makes it to artificial superintelligence, which if you follow some futurists who are pretty accurate when it comes to stuff like that, might be
this year.
No, fortunately not. I mean, they correct their predictions usually a little bit closer to us, closer to now. But it might be somewhere around the 2032, 2033 corner.
Yeah.
So
in our lifetime,
if that for
sure.
Even like if they're super wrong, right? If they're super wrong and it gets pushed another decade,
still,
nice.
Yeah.
We can relive the 90s.
Yeah.
In the meantime, but if that happens, if that actually happens, we have a very different conversation, because if we manage to build an artificial superintelligence, and I don't think it's far-fetched, we would actually build an artificial god.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, ethically alone, a very tricky conversation to have.
Someone's going to push one button like in 10 years from now, and then it's going to happen, and then it'll be like, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, will it even manifest to us?
Yeah.
And then you would literally have to accept that we're not the most capable species on the planet anymore.
We never were. If we're truly honest, we never were. We just have the egos to say we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say let's finish it here, and I'm sure in a year from now the conversation will become, in a month from now, and in a half a year from now the conversation would be completely different again, because things have changed. I hope that here and there, with these little salt and pepper things of advice, people can take something from it. I think that was really nice, so thanks for that. Is there any last things you want to say?
Don't be scared of it in the near future. Also,
dun dun dun.
yeah. But be scared in 2032.
Yeah.
No, don't be scared in the near future. Learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
And try to figure out a way to coexist with it.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to do today.
Yeah.
I think what the middleman, the people of today. Yeah.
And don't get spooked by the implication, because this is what sets the world on fire. The American mind usually runs on rumors. You can see that in the stock market.
Yeah.
Which is, for the German mind, a very dangerous notion, because the whole parts of the system, especially in the advertising business and in the film business, everything's crumbling because everyone's like, yeah, tomorrow we can do that with AI.
Yeah.
But we're not even remotely close to that.
No.
I cannot produce a proper Mercedes G-Class advertising that holds up to modern quality standards, where I can see the stitch of the seams.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
We're not remotely there. There's no consistency. It doesn't even know, like, if I have a prototype of a car, how would it know that?
It's like when I asked ChatGPT for an image,
Yeah.
some of the hands are missing on people.
Yeah, we will get there.
Yeah.
But don't be spooked. So I probably would not start as a texter, as a lawyer, and anything that's data driven.
Yeah.
Right now, which in the future probably everything is.
Yeah.
Everything you do with your hands, everything you do to socialize with people.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's an interesting part of our
huge,
world now.
yeah.
But what you're doing, like, I can say I'm totally envious of what you do sometimes, because I lack the capability to do that.
To be with people.
Yeah, I mean, not that, but usually, right? Like I said, is usually when people ask me that, and I was really cautious with you right now. Yeah. It's like in the back of my mind, there was the whole time was this little voice telling me, just like, pump the brakes, kid.
Yeah.
Because if I go full throttle, then usually within 20 minutes,
my eyes are glassed over.
And you'd be depressive.
Yeah.
So what it could do, what it can do, because I give you this false perception of you have no idea, Noah.
Yeah.
It's not the point. It's literally just like, if you want to get ahead, if you give it some of your time during the day, like 20%, whatever you can invest in it, then I'm telling you, in a year from now, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, maybe not, because it'll develop at 22%.
Yeah, but like, if you kind of, I mean, obviously you have to kind of be on it, right?
Yeah.
But today, this just means following certain people on X. Yeah. Filter the shit, because the site is a cesspool of everything.
Garbage, yeah.
Filter it and just like, okay, that model came out. Just basically good advice. Read the headlines. Fuck the content.
Yeah. Okay.
So otherwise you can't.
Yeah,
it's just can't
much.
keep up.
It's too much. There's too much content out there.
Don't be spooked. Just
I think
learn.
If you said you were talking to your kids, just to finish this up, you were talking to your kids about, like, okay, I remember when my parents were helping me figure out what I should do in my life. A lot of it was be a doctor, a lawyer, so something like where knowledge is power.
Yeah. Knowledge is water now.
Yes, knowledge is water. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, those professions will be necessary, but they're going to be probably eventually just specialized people who use AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. For their certain case. Yeah. Because we still will hopefully still need humans for that. What I would say to my daughters is connect with people, and maybe even do something similar to what I'm doing, is work with people and see if you can make money that way.
Yeah.
Because the more digital life gets, I feel, the more disconnected we get from each other,
100%.
Which is so sad to say. It's supposed to connect us, but it disconnects us in a very extreme way. And I think that could be a way to have a life and a career that's unbreakable. Because if you're taking people outside, getting people, I mean, in the worst case scenario, the world is not livable, right?
Yeah.
That's getting really dark, and then getting people together and going outside doesn't really matter anymore. We're living underground somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, where is this going? But I'm pretty optimistic. I'm an optimist, and I think things are going to go well. We have to think that way, or else we're just going to be depressed and scared all the time. And what's the point of that?
It's also going to be self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
like it's the same thing. It's self-talk.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself the whole time, I can't do this, I can't do that. That's also insanely important, especially in these times. It's probably the most important thing. Once you understand, it takes 200 repetitions to write your own code in your brain. Like if you tell yourself, I can't tie a knot. I just can't tie a knot. If you say that 200 times, then your brain goes like, well, he said it 200 times. It must be the new program.
Yeah.
And then you get complacent. And then to realize to get out of this takes at least 1,000 repetitions and the actual belief that you can certainly do it.
Oh man, I love that you're saying this, because it's a whole nother conversation. Self-talk is the new brain programming, and the faster the world can get behind that, the more healthy and happier we will be, because nowadays I see all over the internet talking about trauma, talking about issues, and people are just like giving up their own power to the fact that they're hurt or and they can't take control of it. But why not just completely flip that and give yourself the power with self-talk? Tell yourself you're a superhero. I'm sure there's borders to this.
Don't be unnecessarily positive, because that's the fastest route to depression.
And then just tell yourself you can do this instead of you can't. Boom, fertig. Fertig. Done.
Wenn schon, denn schon.
Wenn schon, denn schon, baby. Thank you, Sebastian.
Absolute
this
pleasure.
was a great conversation, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Bye, everybody. I don't even know when
it cut off.
It cut off. Hopefully not too. Will we have audio?